Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, I guess, for some of you. I'm not sure when you guys are doing your math homework, but I'm going to go ahead and do another lesson with you. You notice I have my friend joining us again. I need some emails from some of you to let me know what we should name our little math friend that's going to be with us on our homework here. So far, we've talked about statistical questions and what a statistical question means and gathering our data. And then yesterday we talked a little bit about a dot plot and we got to see some and read some. Well, today we're going to actually make a few dot plots and look at some fluency charts and tables. So, all right, well, let's take our little friend and move him up here for right now. And let's see what we're going to do today. It says Robert, a sixth grader at Roosevelt Middle School, usually goes to bed around 10 p.m. and gets up around 6 a.m. I don't think that's happening right now. To get ready for school. That means that he gets about 8 hours of sleep on a school night. He decided to investigate the statistical question. How many hours per night do sixth graders usually sleep when they have school the next day? Usually sleep when they have school the next day. Very important for us to think about that. So it says here, Robert took a survey of 29 sixth graders and he collected the following data to answer the question. Go ahead and circle the number 29 because that's going to be important for us on the next page. So we have 29 sixth graders and the hours that they slept. Looks like here the least amount was 5 and the largest number is 12. So if you notice, the dot plot they're starting to make it right here. They made their number line. They didn't start at 0. They started with 5. And if you notice, the pattern that they decided to count with was ones. And we have a nice label down here that says numbers of hours slept. Well, if you notice down here on the bottom, if I slide my paper down, let's go ahead and slide a little bit more. Let's bring our little friend down here with us. What we're going to do is we're going to take the data numbers that you've been given at the top of the page, and we're going to put some dots on here. They went ahead and did the first one for you. There's a 7, and so they went ahead and put a dot here for the 7. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and pause the video, and I'm going to ask you to go ahead and fill the rest of these in. So, for example, the next number is an 8, so you're going to put a dot for an 8. Remember, once you have another 7, we'll just keep piling the dots up on top of each other. So go ahead and pause your video and put those dots in for me. Okay, so if you notice, I have finished my dot plot. If you notice, though, I put some numbers up here on the top. You might know why, you might not. For me, it's pretty easy for me to see that there's 1 dot, 3, I can count 4. But for me, these become very difficult when there's so many dots. And so a lot of times I'll just go ahead and put the number. It's kind of interesting that it happens to be that this is 8 hours of sleep and there were 8 dots. 9 hours of sleep and 9 dots. That's not always going to happen, but this just kind of helps me out so that when I need to know how many dots there are, I don't need to recount them. Okay, so go ahead and turn over to the next page. Okay, so I've already gone ahead and turned over to the back page. You don't have this on your page, and it's because I made a copy so that you and I didn't have to flip our pages back and forth to make it easier. You can just look at my dot plot and we can answer the questions. Number 1, we won't need to do because it says to complete the dot plot, which we already did. So we're going to move down to question number 2. And question number 2 says, what are the least and the most hours slept? Okay, by sixth graders. Well, even though the number 5's here, I do have a dot. So 5 is my smallest and 12 is my largest. So I put it like this. Least equals 5 hours and the most is 12 hours. Okay, the next question says, what is the most common number of hours slept? Well, if I notice here, we range from 5 to 12. 5 and 6 there aren't very many students that have 5 or 6 or 7 hours. I have the feeling most of you might be right here right now. But to me, it looks like here the most would be 9 because it has the most dots. Most common is 9. Okay, the next question is, how many hours of sleep describe the center of the data? So if you remember, I had you guys circle the number on the front telling us how many students there were. Well, there were 29 students. And if I take 29 students and I would want to find the center, I'd cut that in half. So I like to sometimes round this 29 up to 30. And if I know I divide 30 in half, that's going to be about 15. So I could do this. I could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 15. So it's going to actually come possibly in between right here. So I put the center is around 8 or 9 hours. So I'll give you some time to write that down while I move our little friend back here to join us. Don't forget, we need to give him a name. Okay, question number 5 says, think about how many hours of sleep you usually get on a school night. How does your number compare with the number of hours of sleep from the survey of 6th graders? So you need to decide what your answer is going to be. Are you somebody that's going to be fewer hours of sleep? Or are you somebody that demands a lot? Or are you somebody right in the middle? My sentence, to give you an example, is this is what I put. I said the number of hours that I sleep is similar to the students in this survey. I'm very similar. There are nights where I get a few hours of sleep. Most of the time I aim for 8. It doesn't happen. 12 hours would be wonderful, but probably not realistic. So go ahead and put down what you think where you would fall compared to this dot plot. Okay, then we're going to move on down a little farther. It says here, make a dot plot of the number of hours slept when there is no school the next day. Here's the data. These are the 6th graders, the hours that they're sleeping when they don't have school. If you notice, the numbers look kind of similar, but we're going to find out for sure. So what I would like for you to do is this. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and make a line. Make your line down close to the bottom so you have room to put your dots. And if we notice, I see here the smallest number I think is a 5. And I think the largest number I see is a 12. So I probably will number my dot plot starting from 5 and going up to 12. And I probably will just count by ones. Oh, there's a 13. So we want to go to 13. So let's go 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to pause your video, and I'm going to ask you to go ahead and make a dot plot. Finish counting your numbers here and go ahead and put dots for all of these. When you're finished, you can press play on your video and see if you did it correctly. Okay, so let's look to see how you did here on your dot plot. I counted from 5 to 13, counted by ones. I put my dots so that they lined up. If you notice right here, I put a little 8 right there just to help me remember that there were 11. This is for 11 hours and that 8 students chose 11 hours. So my label for this down here, these would all be hours. So I would say number of hours. Okay, so let's go ahead and look and see. Maybe you went ahead and looked at some of these questions as well. Let's see. It says, how many hours of sleep with no school the next day? Describe the center of the data. So if I would look here and try and find the center, I put here that it's 11 hours is the center. Now, if you notice, 11 is not the center of my number line, but if I wanted to find the center, I could do what I did earlier, take the 29 students, divide it in half. Another way some people like to do it is they like to start on each end and just start moving in. You know, you have the biggest, smallest, biggest, smallest, biggest, smallest, and you keep moving in farther and farther until you eventually move in to where you eventually will end here on 11 hours. Okay. Another way, like I said, we could do it is we could look at the 29 students. 29 students we decided to cut in half is approximately 15. Okay, 14 and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If I stopped right here, this would be 14 students. Let's see how many this would be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this would have one more student. So this is kind of my extra. So it would be 11 would be directly in the middle here. Number 8, what are the least and most hours slept with no school? Well, the least still was 5, and the most now was 13. Okay. And the last question on the page says, do students sleep longer when they don't have school the next day? Funny that we're asking that. Than they do when they do have school the next day. Explain. Well, when I looked at this dot plot compared to this dot plot, if you notice, look at all the 10s, 11s, 12s, and 13s, whereas when we did have school, we didn't have that. The dot plot did not look similar. So I wrote this for my response. If you would like to use mine, you sure can. Let me move it up so everybody can see. I said, when it asked, do students sleep longer? I said, yes, because more of the data points are in the 10, 11, 12, and 13 categories. We talked about how there's more dots here than there were on our other graph. Okay, so I'll let you write that down. The last thing we're going to do is something with frequency and tally marks. So when you're ready, go ahead and flip over to the next page. On the next page here, let's bring our little friend here. It says, a group of 6th graders investigated the statistical question, how many hours per week do 6th graders spend playing a sport or outdoor game? Here are the data the students collected from a sample of 26 6th graders, showing the number of hours per week spent playing a sport or a game outdoors. To help organize the data, the students placed the number of hours into a frequency table. A frequency table lists items and how often each item occurs. So for example, if you look at all the numbers, our smallest number here was a 0, and the largest number here was a 12. So on our table here, you will notice they put a label, number of hours playing sports games. We ranged from 0 all the way till 12. To build a frequency table, first what we're going to do is we have 3 columns. We have the tally column and the frequency column. What we're going to do with our tally column is basically that. We're going to make tally marks. So we're going to look up here at the top, and we're going to see how many times we see the number 0. And as soon as we count that, we will put tally marks. So if I notice I see a 0 here, I like to cross them out so I don't miss them. 1, 2, 3. So for the 0, I'm going to put 3 tally marks, and I'm going to write a 3. Okay, go ahead and see if you can do the rest of these. Pause the video, and then when you're finished, go ahead and see if you have what I put. Okay, so go ahead and look at your paper. Once again, if you didn't get this paused, go ahead and pause it so that you can look at and copy down what I have here on my chart. You will notice as I found the numbers at the top, I like to cross them off, because that way I can make sure that I've gotten everything. The 12 was my last number, so that's why it was left. For the 0, I had the 3 tally marks and the 3. 1 hour, there were 4 students, so I put a 4. 5 students said 2 hours. 7 students said 3. When you look down here at 5, there were no students that picked 5 hours, so I didn't have any tally marks, but the frequency I need to put is 0. There were 0 students. Same thing with the 7, 9, 10, and 11. I went ahead and put the 0 here under the frequency table. Okay? Okay, we're going to look at the last page. So if you would flip over to the last page. And while you are flipping over, go ahead and copy down these numbers real quick. These are the numbers that you and I just solved. But I don't really want us flipping back and forth, because I think that kind of gets us sidetracked and we get a little lost. So we're going to go ahead and copy everything down. It's just the same as the front. These were the number of hours that students played sports or an outdoor event. We have 3. We put 3. If you would write the numbers down here, and then what we're going to do is I want you to go ahead and finish your tally marks, which would be pretty simple. Okay. And then all I would like for you to do is I would like for you to go ahead and finish this page for your homework, which is going to be S15. You're going to finish filling this in. Once you do that, that means you have number 11 done. You're going to make a dot plot right here. So you're going to put your long line, and then you're going to answer these 3 questions. But before you start on your homework, I waited till the end. Why don't you go ahead and flip over to the homework from last night, and I'm going to put my answers up here on the screen for you to look at to see how you did. Remember, number 1 was you had to write your own statistical question. This is an example. Maybe yours is not the same as mine. Obviously, I just said, what are the vertical jump heights of NBA players? I have to get a lot of information, so that's statistical. These answers have to be exact answers from the information up here. Make sure that you added your dot for the player that jumped 33. And then you had to make a statement saying, how does this player compare? And I just said this player jumped the same as 2 other players, as you can see, and jumped higher than only 1 player. Okay, so you can obviously pause this. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to email me or respond back on Google Classroom. Otherwise, I will give you all a lesson again on Thursday, and then Friday, no math lesson. I'm going to give you a little assessment. So talk to you all later. Bye.